essentially turning that strategy into, oh boy, I just got spooked there by the recording. Thanks, Kyle. So essentially, the municipally controlled corporation would allow us to put the strategy into motion. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Jordan Rugg. I'm the manager of planning and development with Smoky Lake County. Some of my colleagues are here along with me this evening, so I will let them introduce themselves as well, maybe starting with Mr. Scholey.
Thank you for that, Jordan. It's a pleasure to see everybody who's joined us this evening. My name is Kyle Scholey. I hail originally from Westlock, but I now live here in Wassetna, and I work with Jordan in the Smoky Lake County Planning and Development Department. We deal quite a lot with obviously planning and development, but also heritage-related matters as well. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation this evening and hearing any of the questions that come up. Hopefully answering as many as we can, and those that we can't, getting the information and doubling back to you in the near future as well. So thank you for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to Michelle Wright to introduce herself.
Yeah, hello, I am Michelle Wright. I'm the Community Economic Development Officer for the Smoky Lake region, which includes Vilna, the Town of Smoky Lake, and the County of Smoky Lake. And so the tourism development strategy has been high on our priority list for economic development over the last couple of years, and looking forward to sharing where we're at tonight.
Councillor Haliski, I see you've joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I'm Lauren Haliski. I'm Division 4 County Councillor for the county. Like Michelle, the tourism strategy is very exciting. We have a lot of good initiatives and a lot of good things happening in our region. And yeah, this is a big part of our economic development, and looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Thank you for joining us, Councillor. Perhaps I will look to Lydia if she wishes to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lydia Seal, and I'm the Assistant CAO for Smoky Lake County. And I too, as well, I'm looking forward to see the feedback received tonight for such a good initiative that's going to be happening in our region.
Thank you for being here, Lydia. I would look to Adam Kozakevich if you wish to introduce yourself as well. And I see you're joining us from a very Northern Lights illuminated setting.
I'm Adam Kozakevich, CEO of Town of Smoky Lake, and I look forward to hearing and helping present, if needed, any information that's necessary. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I believe the remainder of those of you on the call are what I would consider either public or media. So I won't necessarily force you to out yourselves and introduce yourselves unless you wish to, in which case just interrupt me here in the next few seconds. Other than that, I will turn it back over to Jordan and Michelle to just give us the presentation, and perhaps that'll trigger some questions if those of us who are here don't already have some. So over to you two.
Thanks, Kyle. So as some of you may or may not know, Smoky Lake County, the town of Smoky Lake, and the Metis Nation of Alberta have embarked on an economic development strategy, which is heavily focused on leveraging some of the heritage assets and the tourism assets that exist within the region, as well as trying to promote and encourage additional tourist and heritage assets to locate within the region. And the idea is to help try to build off of some of the excitement that's happening at the Métis Crossing site, as well as throughout the Victoria District, the Victoria Settlement, and try to sort of spread some of those tourist activities and the economic development spin-offs that occur with those activities wider throughout the region. So this would include the town of Smoky Lake, obviously, but also greater parts within the county and the two villages as well. So back in June of 2020, the county and the town actually adopted a bylaw, which is the Victoria District Economic Development Strategy. And shortly thereafter, the Métis Nation of Alberta was brought into the fold to sort of create this tri-council partnership between the two municipalities and the nation. We're very proud of the work that we've done so far, as this is a very unique opportunity. It's sort of a one-in-a-kind thing in the province. Nothing like this has ever been done before. So of course, there's been some challenges and some hiccups along the way, but we've accomplished a lot over the last year and a half, and we're now at the point where we are ready to move ahead with the next phase of the strategy, which is we recently adopted a business plan, and now it's time to translate what's in that business plan into action. And one of those actions is the development of what is called a municipally controlled corporation. And as the name implies, it's a corporation that's controlled by a municipality, or in this case, two municipalities, being the county and the town. And this corporation would essentially look for opportunities to invest and possibly loan money to private sector tourist operations. We would help with things like marketing and destination management. And Michelle's going to go into the nuts and the bolts of this MCC very shortly. So I just wanted to provide that little bit of background context so that the folks that are listening to us this evening can understand the process to what got us here. So for now, I will turn it over to Michelle, and she's going to jump into the municipally controlled corporation. And then once she's given you the presentation, we'll be open for any questions that you might have and let you know what the next steps are.
Great, thanks, Jordan. So, host has disabled my screen sharing. So Kyle, Jordan, if you can let me share my screen.
I suppose I'll have to fix that, won't I? I will make you a co-host, and you should be good to go now, Michelle.
There I am. Thank you very much. All right, so our evening is really focused on, as Jordan mentioned, the municipally controlled corporation. So one of the things that we are looking to do is to get feedback from our community on the municipally controlled corporation and what we propose it's going to be doing and how it fits with the rest of the strategy that Jordan mentioned. So our foundation for the Victoria District Economic Development Strategy is based on our values. So we believe in preserving and promoting our cultures, our heritage, and our ecological assets. And the entire tourism strategy is built on that piece of work. We're not looking to build Disneyland. We are looking to use what we have for the betterment of the visitor experience and for our residents. So we want to share those assets in an authentic way. And we want to maintain our community identity and lifestyle while sharing those assets. So we don't want to see our community start to be different than it is today. We'd like to see it diversified economically. We'd like to see it with lots of opportunities for youth and others. And we'd like to see it attracting residents to our community. So a bit of the history, Jordan spoke to this. We started in 2018 with Smoky Lake County's 3-year strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, there was a priority to create economic diversification for the county through tourism. In 2019, a project was initiated and we engaged a consultant called Vision XS. Some of you may have met him. That's Tony Sefton of Vision XS, has been supporting us along the way. So through 2019, we did research and economic modeling. We engaged with the community, and a joint town and county council then agreed to collaborate on the strategy. So it became joint town and county at that point. And in 2020, the working group was established, and that included funding models, corporate structures, and the business plan being created. And in 2019, we don't have it on here, but Metis Nation of Alberta was also very interested in what the strategy was going to put together. And they also use Vision XS as their consultant. So this is a very integrated process. And we're looking to see the Metis Nation as one of our founding partners in the project. So in 2021, where we are today is the rubber is starting to hit the road. So we are looking to establish the corporations, and there is more than one, to execute the strategy that we've presented to the public. We've had that engagement ongoing through open houses, public hearings, council meetings, and even small cohort or individual meetings as questions arose from our community. I don't know if we were going to have any commentary from the municipalities or from the Métis Nation. I don't hear anybody. So
I don't
guess-
think so, Michelle.
Okay, cool. So our next one, the purpose of tonight. So we're seeking community input on the creation of a joint partnership of Smoky Lake County and the Town of Smoky Lake and a municipally controlled corporation, which is a critical component of the Victoria District Economic Development Strategy. We are also interested in hearing from the community about other aspects of the strategy. So while tonight we do want to explain the MCC and how it's going to work, we are open to other questions about the overall strategy as well. So what is a municipally controlled corporation? Well, it's just like it sounds. It's regulated by the Municipal Government Act. It's a for-profit corporation that's established to provide services and benefits to the residents of the municipality, where a municipality holds the majority control of appointing the directors. It's a separate legal entity which can pursue its goals from a perspective not always available to a municipality, including profit considerations. And the MJ requires that the profits of an MCC are either reinvested in the MCC or used to benefit of the residents of the municipality which controls it. And in our case, the municipalities, the town and the county. So where does it fit into the overall strategy? The purpose of the MCC will be the corporate platform for the town and county to be able to put money into the local tourism economy and provide a legal and financial buffer from any operational or financial liabilities. So the MCC ensures economic diversification in the region through lending to the limited corporation, and we'll show what that looks like in the structure. However, it is not intended to be a profit-making entity. It will have some profits, but any profits that it does have will be invested to the benefit of its residents. So the sole purpose is not to make, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the MCC. We really want to see the limited corporation be hugely successful so that we get those tourism assets on the ground. The shareholding will be 50% the Town of Smoky Lake and 50% Smoky Lake County. And I'm going to jump to the next one. The governance will be board with 2 members each from the town and the county, and they will elect a rolling chair. The funding will be a $590,000 loan from the Town of Smoky Lake and a $590,000 loan from Smoky Lake County. And the loan terms and conditions will be determined in the next phase. So at this point, we don't know what the interest rates will be. We don't know how the terms will be. Will it be a 20-year payback, a 25-year payback? Those things will be worked out in the next phase as those loan documents get created. The operational income will be a service charge from the limited corporation. And there are additional accountabilities. So the MCC can be a channel or a conduit for municipally sourced grants, other loans, and investments. So it's a bit of it's an overseeing body of the municipalities to look at what's going on in the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation, and it allows the municipalities to be distanced from the private corporation that we're going to talk to in a little bit. So the resources are, there would be no full-time officers or staff. There may be a requirement for some part-time administration to support the board and the board activities. So this is what it looks like. Town of Smoky Lake and the County of Smoky Lake put $600,000 in. $590,000 each becomes a lending fund, and $10,000 is used to purchase shares in the municipally controlled corporation. The Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation is then jointly owned by the Métis Nation entities. So we're not sure if it will be the Métis Nation of Alberta. It could be the Métis Crossing entity. It could be a new entity that the Métis Nation puts together to actually be a part of the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation. So the MCC by law must only hold less than 50% of the total shares. And the M&A and the other investors, and we do expect other investors to come forward to be investing in the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation, would hold greater than 50%. Now that holding of the shares is only one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is the way the board is set up and the way the shares are actually set up. So we will have different classes of shares, and we go into detail in the next couple of slides. So that despite the fact that the MCC has less than 50% of the total shares, because it has a certain type of shares, it does have a great deal of ability to direct the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation to do its business. There will be a community advisory committee. This is very important to the working group, and we want to see that advisory committee supporting the corporate community investment strategy and advising on project suitability. So this is a bit of on the ground thinkers who are coming to the board of the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation and talking about what's going on in the projects and what they think will work or not work, or why something will work or not work. So if anyone's on the call and is interested in being part of that advisory committee, stay tuned, there will be opportunities. And then at the very bottom level is the partner projects. And these partner projects are the actual tourism assets that are being developed. So what's the strategy in a nutshell? Overall, there will be investment, loans, and preferential shareholdings in tourism assets. So it is more than just marketing. It is about actually building new tourism assets and expanding the ones that we already have. There will be corporate operations. These will be done by the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation. There will be acquisitions of accommodation and attraction assets, either solely or with additional partners. And there will be infrastructure funding, so investment needed for tourism development. And it will be the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation that does the bulk of this work. Third-party investment is not required to achieve the results forecasted for the strategy, but we do believe that in having the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation set up as a private corporation, we do have the ability to attract that third-party investment. The MCC cannot attract third-party investment into it itself. And so the Tourism Corporation gives us a way for others in or out of the community to be investing in the Tourism Corporation through shareholdings and other investment opportunities. So what did we hear? As we were putting this together, the big questions were really around how is the municipality's money being used to create the partner projects? So the MCC, the municipality's money goes into the MCC, and the MCC lends money to the limited corporation, who then works with the partners to develop those projects. There could be loans, there could be equity holdings, there could be a combination of both. How are the municipalities repaid their $600,000 investment? So they will hold shares in the Tourism Corporation, which of course will pay dividends when the profits allow. And then $590,000 is lent by each municipality through the MCC to the Tourism Corporation to start to execute the strategy and use it for investment and marketing and getting the project going. So what are the risks? If the limited corporation ever cease to trade, then the MCC, and thus the town and the county, would be one of the creditors. So while money is at risk when we lend from the MCC to the Tourism Corporation, there will be assets created by that Tourism Corporation, and then of course those could be sold to fund repayments to creditors if that was ever required. The other thing to keep in mind is that the MCC and the other board members of the limited corporation will be keeping a very close eye on the activities of the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation, and they will be able to determine if there are starting to be challenges that need to be dealt with through a change in the execution of the strategy, perhaps a deferment of some of the projects, long before we would ever get into a situation where there was a creditor risk. How do we ensure transparency on the flow of money and the municipality's ability to know the status of the investment regularly? So by setting up the governance, the limited corporation has to provide the MCC as a shareholder with its trading and cost figures regularly, and at a minimum at the annual shareholders meeting. As well, the MCC will have board members on the limited corporation. Can the municipal councils and the M&A influence the assets the corporation chooses to develop or partner in? Again, they are board members. And so as the strategy gets rolled out, they will be able to review it at the board level and direct or change the direction of the strategy as needed. So generally the board and the advisory committee that we talked about will act as the main filter and modifier of the corporation's plans. So who from the municipality, elected or administration, will be on the board of the limited corporation? So the municipalities will recommend board members with the skills and commitment to the corporation's vision. They may be municipal leadership or administration, or they may be selected from outside those two areas. What we're really looking for on the board of the private corporation is the people with the skills and the experience to execute the strategy and guide the strategy very, very well. Who else is proposed to be on the board? Well, the Metis Nation of Alberta, of course, the entity that they bring forward, they are a founding member and they will also have a seat on the board, the same as the MCC. And we're looking for 4 or 5 more board members to be recruited. Again, based on their experience developing tourism product, doing marketing or infrastructure development, as well as developing and capitalizing on investor relations. So they will be out with their network looking for investors in that private corporation to be able to create the types of product that we want to create. Do the municipalities have control of the tourism corporation's board? No, they do not. And neither does the MCC. They do have seats on the board, but voting rights are determined by different classes of shares. And the M&A and the MCC shareholders will have higher voting rights than the other share classes. However, the Municipal Governance Act requires the MCC to be a minority shareholder in the limited corporation. In the next phase, when the tourism corporation's articles are defined, the voting process and the procedures will be set. And these will be to ensure the decisions are made in the best interest of the tourism corporation. Actual developments will continue to meet planning and development requirements set out by the town, the county, or the villages through land use bylaws and municipal development plans. So this private corporation does not get a free pass on any of the rules or regulations that the rest of the developers in our communities are expected to follow. Just because they're associated with the municipalities through the MCC, they still have to follow all the rules when they're doing their developments. What will the $600,000 be used for? Will be operations or projects? This spending will be determined by the board and the Tourism Corporation's management team. Annual budgets will be prepared for the board's approval based on the objectives of the Tourism Corporation's strategic plan. And ideally, the bulk of the money develops and markets regional tourism products, but of course, some operational costs may need to be funded from the loan initially. There will also be grants that would be sought to cover as much as the operational cost as possible. And in the long term, operational costs will be funded through booking fees, investment returns, and other incomes. And I think that is it. If there is a link or a page here with Jordan, Kyle, myself, and Adam's contact information, and then we also have a link back to the Victoria District Economic Development Strategy that is on the county website, and it is also on the town website. And I'm going to take a breath and stop sharing and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks for
And
that.
so as Kyle has indicated in the chat, that if anyone has any questions, if you could please type them into the chat so that we can address them now following the presentation. And that way we've got a log of all the questions so that if we can't provide an answer to you this evening, or if it's not a fulsome answer, we'll have it on record and we can go back and look to get you some more information.
While people are contemplating any questions they may have kicking around, I'll maybe kick us off with one. And I'll maybe start with Michelle on this, if you don't mind. One question that came up privately with myself is what is the ultimate worst case scenario with an initiative like this? Are there, you talked a little bit about this, but are there mechanisms built in place to, I guess, fundamentally build in accountability and safety stops? What is the worst case outcome? And then maybe you'll also speak a little bit about the medium and best case outcomes as well, but we'll start with that.
Yeah, so I think there's two questions there. So the first question is, how do we make sure that the money that the municipalities is investing in the MCC and then the MCC is lending to the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation is returned, is paid back to the MCC and then ultimately to the municipalities? And so that is a piece of the documentation that goes along with the lending into the Tourism Corporation and what the expectations are from the MCC on what they want to see on a regular basis to assure themselves that that investment is being governed appropriately. So that's the big piece of it. How do we know when things start to go sideways? This is no different than a household budget. It's just really big dollars. And so as we're monitoring, as the reporting is being done by the corporation, the private corporation, as we're looking at, are we meeting the expectations that we've built into the strategies? Are we hitting the benchmark numbers? Are we sending money back to the MCC through dividends and loan payments at the times that we have committed to? That's a very early warning signal if things are not going well. Now, we certainly did look at the numbers that we were forecasting in the business plan. And with COVID, we took another look and said, do we think we're going to see this money paid back in the 5 years we had originally thought, or is it more likely to take 7 to 10 years? And at the time, no one knew what reopening would look like or when it would happen. So the payback is still extremely viable with both the assets we already have on the ground and that are open and operating or will reopen and operate, but also the additional assets that are coming on board or that we're contemplating will come on board. So like any investor, there is always a risk, but the investor also has the ability and the requirement. They will be monitoring that money very, very closely. They don't have the ability to tell the board, you can't do what you're doing, as the MCC being 2 members. But if things are going sideways, you can expect that the rest of the board is going to be asking a lot of very difficult questions as well. So I think that's something to keep in mind, is that the tourism strategy is everyone on that board wants to see that strategy executed and see the dollars repaid and see the economic diversification that we're trying to achieve. And if that's not happening, then there will be changes in the management team, there'll be changes in the strategy, there'll be changes in how they proceed from that point forward. So worst case scenario is always someone could, like, you can't even think that anybody could get to the money without the management team and the board knowing about it. So not getting paid back, you would hope that at that time, if they're starting to see that there's problems, there's also assets on the ground that the corporation owns and could sell to repay those creditors. I hope that answers the question.
That begins to, and somebody asked me what a private conversation with myself means, and by that I just meant with somebody privately who I won't name. I guess I've got a follow-up as well. And again, folks will have an opportunity to unmute themselves and ask a question verbally or have it put into the chat. And as well, before we adjourn, we'll have the contact information up on the screen again as well. A follow-up question that I had also was to do with opportunities for community investment. And I perhaps missed it if you touched on that briefly, but could you speak to that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a really exciting part of what the private corporation will be able to do. We're looking at a couple different things. So you could, as a private investor with the right skill set, actually be on the board. And in order to be on the board, you need to buy shares. So this puts the board members' skin in the game, that they're making sure that their investment is protected. And so people with the right skills would be able to invest at that level. There will also be opportunities in the projects themselves for local people to do investments, either as a private investor. I have a project, I'd like to go to the corporation, I'd like support in getting this project off the ground. I'll put in some money, you put in some money, kind of like a Dragon's Den scenario without, like, you know, the kind of thumbs up, thumbs down that they do. It will be much more professional than that. We do have those opportunities for individuals. And then the third one is we are looking at a community investment strategy that will allow people to invest in the corporation like any other private corporation in Canada, and use that investment as part of their tax-free savings account, potentially as part of their registered retirement savings plan. So getting that level, the amount of detail in the Securities Commission requirements to get to there is extremely complicated, but it is a goal for that tourism corporation. The more local people we have investing in the tourism corp and in these projects, the better the overall strategy will be. And again, we'll maintain who we are. We'll get to stay as the community we are, because we'll all be super interested in what's going on in the tourism corporation, and we won't want it going in a direction that doesn't, allow us to be the great Smoky Lake that we already are.
That's very helpful, and it's particularly a portion of the project that I'm personally very curious to see unfold as well. My next question deals a bit with the town, so I'm not sure if Adam is available at the moment, and perhaps he can chime in. But I guess the question is, why would the town be interested as a participant in this? Obviously, Metis Crossing, and in fact, the Victoria District itself is in Smoky Lake County. But I think there are very tangible reasons why the town would want to be a part of this. Perhaps we'll start with Adam, and then we can maybe, if anybody else wants to chime in to speak to that.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I think that it's a very easy to answer question in the sense that everything that happens in the county affects all of us in the same sense. And so I think that, the bigger the economic impact is for the county, that economic impact spills over to the town and vice versa. Also, a lot of people that are going to be living are probably going to be living in town because properties tend to be cheaper in town. And I think that that's what's going to happen is drive the economy of the town will be driven, right, with rentals and whatnot. I think that typically in the county, most residents in the county, aside from the hamlets, are living on large pieces of land, which tend to be expensive, and they're there for the farming operation. While these operators may be smaller in nature and requiring other skills that we're trying to attract that would be available in the town. But I'll leave it at that because there's way more than that to say, and I'll divert to maybe Jordan, Michelle, or Mr. Mayor Hank Holowaychuk, who joined us a little bit late. That's who Hank Holowaychuk is. He did not put the fact that he's the mayor, but he is our esteemed mayor. And I think he's running for the county for the reef position. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. No, keep on going.
Yeah, I appreciate some of your comments there, Adam. And basically, my thinking behind it is that by driving traffic to the county, we're also driving traffic to the town and bodies in businesses, basically. So that means more accommodation in town, both in terms of short-term and also medium and long-term rentals of additional quality as well. Greater options as far as food and beverage service also. And that extends not just to the peak season, but also to the shoulder and off seasons as well. So this is not, Metis Crossing is a big feature in this, and they will be the anchor for some time, but it's not just a gift to Metis Crossing that this is a project that is coming forward. I think this is an initiative to develop additional assets in addition to and beyond from Metis Crossing. And so that's my perspective on it personally. I'm not sure if Jordan or Michelle have anything to add.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So one of the other important facets of the strategy is the transportation linkages. So you had mentioned that we're, focused primarily, at least at the outset, on what's happening at Metis Crossing and along Victoria Trail. And that's for the simple fact that those things are in existence as we speak right now. So it makes a lot of sense to try to focus on those things and leverage that and spread those benefits out to a wider region. And the way that that's accomplished is through having these transportation linkages. So obviously the Victoria Trail is one, the Iron Horse Trail is another, and then part of the strategy is to sort of develop north-south linkages that would create a full loop that would allow people to get along the system and then try to develop the tourism assets along that transportation loop, linking everything together. And certainly the town, as well as the two villages, are nodes within that transportation link. So again, that's where a lot of the benefit to the town is going to come from, is the region is attracting these tourists and these visitors. They may in fact go to the Métis Crossing or the Victoria Trail, check out some of the great things down there, but they're also going to circulate through town, and they're going to spend their money here as well. And there's also some complementary things that are happening in town right now. There's going to be a brand new school built in the next couple of years. It's already been tendered out for the design, so we know that this is happening. There's a potential for a new fire hall to be built at some point in the near future as well. There's lots of things happening. We've got a daycare in town here now. So all the things that families like, in particular young families, which are going to help this community grow and prosper in the future. So these opportunities for people to come and invest, it's going to benefit the town, the county, the villages, the Métis Nation, everyone on board here. That is the goal, is to try to make sure that we're not just focusing on one specific area or one specific business. It's all about growing that system. Michelle, do you have anything?
Yeah, just the piece around the strategy itself. So from an economic development perspective, when I'm approached by people either looking to expand their business or move into the community, they could be anywhere. So we've been having lots of conversations about Vilna and what we can be doing in Vilna. And that strategy is key and is so unique compared to what other economic development officers would share to someone who is potentially looking at an opportunity. So we always share demographics. Here's how many people we have. Here's kind of how old they are. Here's what they like to do. But having that tourism strategy in place and being able to share that really gives us a step up on other communities, because they can see that there's an opportunity to bring in, that we're actually working our butts off to try and bring in more visitors. And ultimately, some of these visitors we would hope would turn into residents as well. So that's a big piece of what the hard work has been to develop this strategy, built out from the Victoria District, but then expanding all the way throughout all of our communities to ensure that anyone who's interested in doing a tourism activity or a tourism project in line with our cultural, ecological, and heritage values will be able to go to the Smoky Lake Tourism Corporation, which is funded by the MCC, to actually support the work that they're trying to do. And that could be Servants Farms, Linda's Market Gardens, Just for Licks Ice Cream, the Blue Horse Gallery. It could be anyone in our community, in any of the communities that has the opportunity to then get engaged with the Tourism Corp, who is out there spreading the word about what we have to offer in Smoky Lake, out there and in here, so that we know what's going on in our own community. And we've certainly all spent a lot of time in our own community in the last 14 months, and people didn't know how many great things we actually had going on here and that they could do locally, even our local folks. And Hank's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to hand it over to Hank.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I didn't see you with your hand up. You go ahead.
That's okay. I just kind of woke up from a power nap. But anyhow, there's several things about this strategy. Number one, the studies show that the status quo is not going to carry us into the future very well. So we look at alternatives. And tourism has been a part of Smoky Lake for years. Our Smoky Lake Stampede would have been on its 49th year, 10 years when it started, then a lapse, and then would have been the 39th and 40th. That's a pretty long history of attracting tourists to the region. And a lot of businesses over the years, even when the chamber started that event, they look forward to that to tide them through the slower months. But this strategy will enable our region collaboratively, collectively, to partner with government, with Métis Nation, with the Métis Crossing, with various other business ventures like Johnny Ritchie's over at Kickanoo, and like Michelle mentioned, the Blue Horse Art Gallery. There's a lot of stuff that we're starting to see the benefits already, and the huge investment by various levels of partnerships in the Métis Crossing. That's a $20-some million investment. We already are winners, And the reason I say that is for far too long, going back to the 90s, when I sat on economic development and tourism initiatives, the idea was with Jan Reimer that we have to get people to Alberta. And then when they come to Alberta, they're not all going to go to the mountains. Some might, but there's so much else to see in Alberta. And the Metis Crossing will be one of those anchor points. But we sit on the doorstep of 1 million plus people that are within an hour and 50-minute drive, even let's say 4 hours from Calgary. So we have a lot to offer. And this strategy will enable us to build on those relationships and to move forward into the future. This is an investment in our future. It's not going to be the be all and end all, but it'll enable the businesses that we have here to grow and prosper. And so I think already another example is the repurposing of the lodge, the Niikanen House. They are such a welcome addition to the neighborhood. I just talked to some residents the other day. They just completed the roof renovation. They probably sunk about, I'm just guessing, $650,000 to $700,000 already into our region in town. But I don't look at town and urban, and when something happens here, it's good for everybody. They might stop at Wassetna to gas up. They might stop at the fast gas on the way out to Ashmont or whatever. Everybody benefits from the traffic that we have drawn to this region, whether it's coming out for Voyager days, going to the Pumpkin Fest, going to the Stampede, or finding things during the winter months to encourage people to come and take advantage of what we have to offer here. So it's a small investment. And the way I look at it, just crunching numbers, $100 spent by an average tourist, whether you gas up, grab a meal, buy a rodeo ticket or whatever, and maybe stay overnight, you multiply that by 1,000 people on any given, say, weekend. That's $100,000 of extra cash that came into our community that didn't go to Canmore, Kananaskis, Banff, Jasper. The big parks are overcrowded already. And so it's not getting to be the experience that we can offer out here, open spaces. And I think there's a lot of potential here. So I look at it as an investment in our future, in our community. And it already is allowing people to live and work in this area. And housing, we're seeing an uptake in housing. And I just talked to some people today. They're living in town. They're working at the Metis Crossing. It's just unlimited opportunity. So it's a win-win for everybody. That's my thoughts on it.
I really appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. And you touched on a number of important points, I think. And actually, a number of the comments in the last couple of minutes, it's almost like you know what my next question was going to be. So thank you for that. A couple of you might have a perspective on this. And the question is, are we the only ones working on tourism right now? It's a COVID environment. We had an announcement this morning from the province about reopening. It's not the first time we've reopened, and hopefully it is the last. But in your work as individuals for the region or for the county or for the town, are we the only ones working on tourism right now? And I'll go to Michelle first.
Yeah, I've been singing this song for quite a while. I would say that the difference in our strategy from what I've seen from others is the actual creation of the assets. So creating actual pieces that go with what we already have, whether that's a visitor center on the Victoria Trail at the county flag commemorative site, whether that's we do a big project of some sort, like maybe flora and fauna or fisheries or something like that. That's the difference, is that most of the communities promote what they have and hope that someone comes in and invests and gives them something else to promote. Our difference is that we are actively engaging in the creation of the assets that are going to be of benefit, not just to our visitors, but to our residents as well. So when we talk about some of the opportunities that we have with these super creative developers, these assets are going to be available to the community to use as well. And so, like, how great would that be to have not just, the jobs that will be created, but the school tours that could be done. And, our own schools could be proud of what's going on in our community and saying, well, that's our fish farm. That's our jackfish. That's our whitefish. That's, we know what this is used for. And it came, right out of our river or our lake or whatever that is. I think there's a lot of ability to develop pride in the community by creating these assets. And that, to me, is the difference. What I can also share is that it hasn't been COVID that's done this. It has been an evolution in the economic development world, in the tourism world, is that it is no longer a fight to the finish or a competitive environment. It is all about sharing what we have as widely as we can and sharing what our neighbors have, because we are trying to attract people out, and for them to drive out for one thing we might have going on in Smoky Lake, that's not enough. They want to go like, okay, well, what's in the next community and what's in the next community? They do not know the boundaries, and say, oh, well, I'm just going to go to Smoky Lake. I'm not going to go to St. Paul, or I'm not going to go to Ashmont, or I'm not going to go to Thorhild, or whatever they might. And so that ecosystem that's developed around the tourism assets through our destination marketing organization, the Lakeland DMO, through another group we have going, which is the Elk Point St. Paul, and now I kind of tag along and ask if we can help and participate, is Smoky Lake. We have a regional tourism group there as well. And these are people that have seen the way we're changing economic development, that it is no longer a competitive sport, and it is very much collaborative. We can't have it all in one location, and people are willing to come out and spend some time with us and spend some time with their neighbors, and that's all good for everybody.
Great points, Michelle.
Let's go to Jordan, and then after that, we'll go to Hank. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something sort of that Michelle was getting at there, this cooperative approach to tourism. I think that this region has a number of assets that other regions within the province don't have. Certainly, we all know about the Rocky Mountains, and they're great, and I like going there too. And I think a lot of international visitors, as well as other people from Canada, obviously come out here to see the Rockies because they've been promoted for decades and everybody knows about them. But one of the things that we've heard from our discussions with the folks from Travel Alberta and some of the other tourism professionals is they've done exit interviews with folks who come to Canada or come to Alberta to visit. And the number one thing that they're disappointed, I guess, in terms of their experience is the lack of Indigenous experiences, history and culture and things like of that nature. And we're blessed, obviously, to have the M&A and the Métis Crossing site and all the great cultural and heritage programming that they have at that site. So this is an opportunity, I think, for us to really market that element. And then again, once we have people drawn out here to see that, they're going to spend some time and check out everything that we have to offer in this region. We've got Great Lakes for people who like to fish. We've got great landscape for people who like to hunt. There's all sorts of trails for people who like to hike and bike and ATV and snowmobile in the winter. You got people that like to berry pick. How could I forget my friend Kyle, the kayaker extraordinaire? We've got the North Saskatchewan River, as well as some other creeks there. We're currently working on a designation of the North Saskatchewan River as a Canadian Heritage River. So all of these elements combine into one larger story. And I think, even if one element isn't for everyone, and it's not going to be for everyone, the goal is to have something that speaks to every sort of group. And I'll leave it at that. And sorry, Mr. Mayor, I've cut you off twice now tonight.
No, Jordan, I appreciate those comments. There's several other things. I've been asked numerous times by people, well, don't you think the Métis Crossing is going to compete or whatever with, let's say, weddings or whatever? Quite the contrary. It's a niche market for someone that wants something different. You're still going to have the weddings at the ag complexes, etc. But if someone books a wedding at the world-class Métis Crossing Conference Center, They're going to have a hotel that'll accommodate 40 people. You have an average wedding party of 150 to 200. Some people will take up accommodation in Smoky Lake at some of our other venues, Super 8 or the Historic Inn or the Skyway or bed and breakfast. But this thing's going to benefit the whole region because some of those people will go to the brand new hotels in Bruderheim. Some will go to Redwater, brand new hotels that were sitting, half empty during the last little downturn in the economy. So Lamont, Vegreville, they're only an hour away. So that'll benefit everybody and it'll create that interest in traffic. And we do have a lot of history along the banks of the North Saskatchewan, the Victoria settlement. But just going back over time, there's a lot to see and do in this area. And it's kind of like someone said, even the North Saskatchewan, that is probably one of the most undeveloped, unrecognized resources that we have sitting in our backyard for the last 75, 100 years. You go to other places, and I've traveled, there'll be housing along those riverbanks. There'll be people that'll be moving into the rural areas to experience that quiet space. We've had people move into Smoky Lake already, buy a smaller house. They come out on weekends, they store their RVs or their motorhomes, whatever. They love going to Bella squatting or picking whatever. So this thing just will snowball in time. It'll take a little bit of time. Nothing's going to happen overnight. But really, it's a good partnership and a good investment to highlight what we've got to sell in this region. And it'll ensure the survival of a lot of our businesses moving forward into the future. Because like I said, everybody can't end up in Banff or Jasper or Canmore. And you just saw on the news maybe the other day, Canmore Council just turned down a huge housing and complex. You know what? I'd be reaching out to those people and say, you know what, come on down to Smoky Lake. If Canmore doesn't want you, we've got spaces and places that you will be able to invest and see a fair return moving forward, because we're looking way over the hill, not just today and tomorrow. So yeah, I'd just love to talk to some of those people and see maybe they reconsider where they're investing and consider this region.
Yeah, and Hank, all the positive things, right? And the concern, of course, is we don't want to be Banff. We don't want to be Jasper. We definitely don't want to be Whistler, right? We are saying we want to be who we are. And by having both the advisory committee and members of the board who get what the strategy is all about, that it is not about hundreds of thousands of visitors that are just like marching up and down the street and going into every retailer and buying stuff from built like somewhere else. That's not our intent. That's another difference that we're making in our strategy compared to what some others are potentially trying to do. We're being very conscious about this. We want Smoky Lake to be Smoky Lake. All its charms are maintained. The residents are happy, because if it's not working for the residents, and this is Tony Sefton from Visionist, if it is not working for the residents, it will not work for the tourists. Because part of what those exit interviews say is that people want to actually meet the people who live there, and they want to know where's the best place to go for a beer, where's the best place to go for a pizza, and they want to talk to the locals, and we want our locals to be comfortable and happy and welcoming as they are today, so they're not feeling overwhelmed, and that they still get access to all the things that they enjoy today, is a big piece of that strategy as well.
Yeah, Michelle, you make a good point, and as Tony, in one of his sort of Britishisms, talks about tourism being a steady eddy. So it's not something that you're necessarily going to see these massive returns from, and that's okay though. It's something that will provide you a good return, a steady return over the long run, which, if you're an investor, is a pretty good thing. If there's less volatility in your investment, and it's going to be a good return, that's what you want. And from the community perspective, I agree wholeheartedly. I've been in this community for just over 6 years now. I moved from a big city to come out here, and I'm still here. And part of the reason is it's got the small town feel, and I can go to the grocery store and not have to wait in line for half an hour like I do in the city. And I think that, you know, if our residents are worried about things like that happening with the way that this strategy is moving forward, I'd like to tell them that that's not going to happen. We're not turning into the next Disneyland or anything like that, right? That the volume of people that you're going to be having coming through here is not expected to be anywhere near that. You might have a few dozen extra people here every day on a, you know, summer day, and that's going to help support the businesses, but it's not going to put undue amount of pressure on the community services. So it's finding that middle ground that's, like you say, acceptable, you know, and actually encouraged within the community, but also something that's going to benefit the businesses as well. So we're very cognizant of that.
Yeah, Jordan, and if I could add, you know, we want to share what we have here. It's kind of a best kept secret, but we want to ensure the sustainability of our ecosystems, our resources, and all that. But having said that, there isn't a business person in town or the region that I've talked to that says they don't want any more traffic through their stores. They need that extra traffic to survive and to move forward and to grow and prosper. That's just a given. So, you know, I want to go back. Smoky Lake's been known to host world-class events, and we have a huge bunch of volunteers, and there's a new generation coming up, like the Cadet Club and etc. But in 93 or 92, we hosted the World International Orienteering. And the people that came here, including a 93 or 94-year-old Swede or a guy from Denmark, they had the time of their life because they couldn't get over the spaces and the resources and the atmosphere of a small town that opened up their arms for them, right? So we don't want to lose sight of that, but we need that extra traffic to maintain all our businesses and to see new ones flourish. And even on that note, I talked to Dawn Marie Marchand, Indigenous artist, just stopped by to talk to her briefly. She's stocking up her gallery with a lot of local artists and Indigenous craftsmen and just everything from soap bombs and infused sweetgrass products. It's amazing, right? And her artwork and other artists and all those things. Even her art walk gallery through downtown Smoky Lake wouldn't have happened if we weren't moving in this direction, and she saw the opportunity. And she's back in town, and we're glad. And that's just one example of someone that's, and even the golf course years ago, people saw the potential. There was a huge investment group that was willing to spend a lot of money to expand on what we have here because it's just unique and it sits in a nice area and people want that different experience. So yeah, I'm pretty confident this is going to be a very, very good thing for the whole region and Alberta moving forward.
Thanks for that, Mr. Mayor. I want to mention one of our participants had to hop off the call, but for those who are remaining, we have been recording this session and we will be posting this to not only the county and town, I'm not sure if the town has a YouTube channel, but if they do, we'll post it there, and social media so that it's going to be shareable afterwards. So that's very fantastic as well. I wanted to also point out that as a kind of a spin-off of the Heritage River project, Jordan and I have been kind of on a province-wide tour of all the different municipalities across the North Saskatchewan watershed. And so why I bring that up is, and I won't name drop, but somebody asked me at one point in the last few years why we can't be more like Sturgeon County or Strathcona County or Parkland County. And the fact is, we are our own place. The town is its own place, the county is its own place, and that needs to be celebrated. But why I mention that is that how we kicked off what turned out to be quite a robust conversation was the question, are we the only ones working on tourism right now? And the answer is resoundingly no. You see other counties and municipalities and organizations, Explore Edmonton, Travel Alberta, right now, looking at 10-year strategies to really grow tourism in Alberta, to double it by 2030. And that's mindful even of the fact that 2020 was the worst year for tourism since the 80s, right? And there's no way around that. That is the fact. But there's reason for optimism, and the reason for that is that tourism comes back quickly. You know, I was on a call earlier today that projected that we won't be back to international tourism levels pre-COVID until at least 2024, but domestic tourism is going to come back with a vengeance. And that is where we are very well positioned, as the mayor pointed out earlier, to tap into that market of now over 1 million people on our doorstep, and to create a name for ourselves, and not in such a way that we're completely forfeiting who we are and what we're about, but to do so in a way that is sustainable and a way that is true to who we are, basically. So I wanted to put that out there as well. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, this session is being recorded and it will be posted online. We'll protect everybody's identities. We should have mentioned this maybe at the beginning that this was going to be recorded, but we will blur out whoever we need to blur out so that identities are protected and go from there. But I think this has been a really great discussion. We've called out for questions a few times, and certainly I think we've had a really great discussion here. Maybe we'll do a roundtable if you don't mind, and just any closing thoughts. I'll point out that this is the second of 3 open houses to be followed by a public hearing on the evening of June 8th, I believe, and somebody will jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on that.
June 2nd at noon is the next open house, and
That's
then the public hearing.
House,
Yeah.
and then the public hearing on June 8th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So the time is not up. Basically, the conversation is continuing after this evening, and we do want to hear from you if questions are out there that we haven't covered just in the basis of our conversation. But with that, we'll kind of move to a roundtable, and I'll put Adam on deck, but I'll start maybe with Jordan. Do you have any closing thoughts for this evening?
Sorry, who are you starting with, Kyle?
I'm starting with you.
You are starting with me. You cut out when you said my name. No, I mean, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending. I know there's only a few of them here, but hopefully what we've had to say tonight has been enlightening, and hopefully it's answered some of the questions that you've had, and maybe it's intrigued you to do a little bit more looking into this, and perhaps you'll have further questions for us. Certainly myself and Kyle and Michelle and Adam are open anytime. Give us a call. Our numbers can be found at our website, smokylakecounty.ab.ca or smokylake.ca for Adam for the town. We're always happy to discuss the strategy and well, anything else with you folks as well. But we want to make sure that we've provided answers to everyone. There's a lot to take in here. All of us who are on this call have been living and breathing this for the last couple of years. So it's maybe become very familiar to us, but we realize that the public, isn't as involved in the process at all times, and certainly they have questions. It's your money that's being invested into this. So certainly we would be more than happy to discuss it with you further. But other than that, I'll turn it over to Adam for any comments that he has.
Pretty much the same thing. I want to thank everybody for attending. I think this is a great opportunity for the town and the county, and actually everybody in the area. I think the spillover is going to be just amazing, and we're seeing it already. I think that one of the comments we're talking about people going to the mountains, and I tried going to the mountains this year. I can't afford it. I think that one of the things that you're going to find is that you're going to get the best
cost you $90 now too, Adam.
Exactly. This is really the best place to be, and I mean we're lucky enough to live here, but I think that there's a never-ending adventure out here, and I think that's time that we shared that concept that we all know is true. And I think that that's the message that this corporation is going to carry forward, and the one that's going to be created with that corporation as well. I think it's very, very important that people know where we are, and I think that what's most amazing is that the residents actually want to see those people. As most of you know, I live right next to Betsy's, which on every weekend there is pretty much a jam on the four-way stop. There's vehicles now parked, trailers and whatnot, all the way back to the school, which is technically behind me, but it looks better if I point it this way. But I actually think it's amazing. You see this spread over, and I think that, you know, we want to make sure that we can help all of our businesses grow with the tourism that's coming here and people that are designated. And I think that COVID actually created a beautiful opportunity for us in the sense that people are somewhat reluctant to travel outside of Canada and even outside of the province, and therefore they're very happy to discover what they've been missing all along. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Adam. Mayor Holloway-Chuck, do you have any closing thoughts?
Well, I just got a couple. I want to thank you guys and your crew and Michelle and everybody that was involved in this, the Metis Crossing, the Metis Nation. It's a real unique partnership. And having said that, I want to say that, yeah, you can go to the Calgary Stampede, great place, and it's world class, and you're going to see the best of the best. But pretty well every one of those cowboys, the Canadian ones that end up at either the Calgary Stampede or the NFR National Finals rodeos, pretty well I can say with confidence, every one of those cowboys had a start at some little rodeo, Little Britches in St. Paul, or high school rodeo, Smoky Lake Stampede, the Dawson Hayes, Wanchuks, all those guys come up through the ranks, and we're such an integral part of that. And so when you go to a rodeo in Kitchener, or you go to Goodfish Rodeo, you get the indigenous experience, you get the drums, the what do you call the stick games, you get the singing, but you sit right up against the fence and you'll get dirt kicked in your face, and you can walk around the corrals and no one's going to need a 20 passes to get behind her. You'll step in a cow pie or a horse patty or whatever. You're going to experience the raw, real thing of rodeo and Western culture and that. So you don't get that at the big rodeos like you do here. So all those things are here, and it's just an opportunity for us to take advantage of those things. And what else did I want to add there? We have a lot of.
I think you wanted to add that you can even have your kids play a cowboy and catch a goat or whatever we're chasing these days on the last stew, which I think is just amazing. You know, the experience that you get, and it's amazing.
Kids get to partake of it. So also on that note, you know, when you look at tourism in a bigger picture, people from here have traveled abroad. So agricultural tourism, we've got a world-class feedlot here, and a lot of beef that feeds a nation. We've got a world-class tree nursery with genetic stock, peat moss plant, and we've got a whole bunch of other things in this region that are unique to this area, and people that there's different kinds of tourists. And so we got a good mix of what we can offer people once they get out here. So I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. And like I said,
Sorry, I think I cut out there for a minute, Hank, but I heard the 99.9% of your comments, and I.
He can repeat them for you, Kyle, if you mute yourself.
That I just did. Go figure. But the point that I wanted to make is that I've often talked to my urban friends in different urban centers that if you're not at a rodeo where you get to walk away with the taste of dust in your mouth, you're at the wrong rodeo, quite frankly. And, you know, I think the theme that has kind of been woven into the conversation this evening is all about authenticity. And I think the mayor's comments speak to that very well. Not to put him on the spot or anything, but Councillor Herliski, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, actually, you guys talked about a lot of stuff, and you know, this whole thing is a regional approach, and you know, there's a strength in numbers. You know, I think that I'm very excited, like Hank said, about this project and the things that we're going to have in place in the future. And I agree with you 100%. With having to go to the big centers and experience the rodeos and the shows and everything else, come to the small town. That's where it really starts. That's where you experience the culture, the history, where everything actually started. And I think that's exactly what Michelle touched on earlier. That is what this is all about. It's about the experience. It's about not being a Banff, a Jasper, God forbid, a Whistler. And we don't want that. We want people to go away and to experience something and want to come back. And that's so important. And it's so true. Having living all over Western Canada myself, I moved back here for that reason, because this is a diamond in the rough. We have a little bit of everything here. Hank touched on it with agritourism, all kinds of tourism. You know, we have things that people need to experience. And you know what? COVID has been a blessing in disguise, really, because we have a lot of new folks in this region, and Hank touched on it. Hank's in town a lot of times and he's talking to people. There's people from all over the place. And I would love to have surveyed people outside of Edmonton or in the Edmonton area to say, do you know where Smoky Lake is before COVID? I guarantee you the numbers will be different now, because we're seeing that every day. And I think we're just going to build on it. I'm really excited. I'm here to support it. That's why I attended tonight. You guys ran a bang up show. Thank you, Kyle, Jordan, Michelle, everybody involved. And thank you for everybody participating. I'm excited about this. Looking forward to what we have to offer in the future.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I really appreciate those comments. I'll turn it over to Michelle for the last word.
Yeah, so my last word will be, I have no doubt that everybody is keen on tourism. What we're really talking about is how we're going to execute the tourism strategy in Smoky Lake region. And that's the, you know, we're not competing with our neighbors. The more tourists they get, the more tourists we'll see. What we're really talking about tonight is, you know, can the community get behind the way we've proposed to actually execute the strategy with the municipally controlled corporation, with the private corporation. That's really the stage we're at. We have heard nothing but great things about tourism and people wanting to get engaged in tourism and people wanting to see more tourists come to our region. That's been overwhelmingly positive. What we're saying now is, this is how we figured out how to do it. And are you okay with how we've determined to do it? And that's our next step. And when we get the green light on this step, we will be off to the races and hiring executive directors and getting board members and really seeing this thing take off. And my sense is, in talking to different investors and different developers, is they can't wait for us to get started, to actually see this thing start. So this is a really exciting point in time to be at, for sure.
I don't think there's any possible comment that I could offer more valid than that, Michelle. So once again, I will thank everybody for their time this evening. We've been at it for nearly an hour and a half. And as I mentioned, the session will be not only posted to social media and on the websites, but also there's another opportunity. So invite your friends and family to attend our next open house and at the end, the public hearing as well. All this information is going to be presented to joint town council and county council, as well as the Metis Nation board. It's an ongoing conversation. So we're very much with a policy of a door open policy. That means give us a call. You can literally knock on my window from outside the county office, so do that. I will, with that, stop the recording of the session. But once again, everybody, safe travels. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I trust that we'll see you very soon. So take care.